Hello again, comic fans, and welcome to Massive Nerds Comic of the Week for March 2nd, 2011. This week, I have got for you something I have been eagerly anticipating for many months, and that is Marvel's 5 Ronin #1 by Peter Milligan and Tomm Coker. Now, the first thing I want to talk about here is the cover art. John Cassidy's cover art is fantastic, as always. But I really have to give credit to David Aja on the alternate cover for this and the remaining issues. This is probably the first time in history a cover has sold me a comic. Just seeing that style here, along with the bits I knew about the story going in, made this an absolute must-read for me, and I'm very, very happy that I did. Now, Marvel tried something similar to this a few years ago with Neil Gaiman's Marvel 1602 comics. And they were a fun read, but honestly it struck me kind of as trying too hard. The characters were very similar to the way they were used in the normal comics, just in a different setting and funny outfits. Honestly, they were stories that really didn't benefit from their setting. However, this is an absolutely original piece. It's a throwback to the old samurai films, starting, of course, with the art style. It is unmistakable. Coker's art, along with striking colors from Daniel Friedman, make this entire comic look like an old Japanese painting come alive as a huge samurai epic. As for me, I loved those old samurai films when I was a kid, and still do to this day. So the story here is set in Japan around 1600, the very beginning of what is known as the Edo era, where Japan was really unifying under a single leader. And it was the last years of the warrior samurai. A lot of the estates and local lords were being broken up, so many of the samurai found themselves as wandering Ronin, masterless, which is what we see here in the first issue focusing on Wolverine. Now, 5 Ronin brings the core characterization of each of the 5 cast members, and just enough of the ties to their normal comic roots to make them familiar, and yet they're completely original because of the way they're handled within this setting. Of course, Wolverine's most recognizable characteristics are his claws and his healing factor. Both of those have been removed as the focus of the character, though they still are in the story in different ways. With those gone as the focus, what's left behind is the core character of Logan, still true to how he's been depicted in the comics going back to the 80s, where he was shown as the wandering samurai type character. So of course for Wolverine, this story is an absolute perfect fit. But the way that his claws, and especially his healing factor, are put into the story are absolutely great, bringing what are the more fantastic elements of his character into a much more believable setting. For example, Wolverine is depicted as the Ronin who will not stay dead, referencing, of course, his healing factor, but the way it's implemented in the story is very unique, a great little plot twist, and it gives me a lot of hope for where things are going in the future. Again, going back to 1602, a lot of those characters had the same powers and abilities as in the normal comics, just manifested in different ways, and that's not quite true here. The way that Wolverine is depicted here is, I don't want to say believable, but at least a little more grounded and fits the story. This was an absolutely great read. Again, fanboy moments. I love samurai stories, so of course I would love this. But I really thought it was very well done. Now, I've read a few reviews out there that just didn't quite get it. Now, honestly, if you have no interest in samurai films or stories, then yeah, this isn't really going to be your thing. But if you're looking for something definitely different while still using familiar characters, 5 Ronin is really something you should check out. The upcoming issues are going to focus on other characters, namely Hulk, Psylocke, Punisher, and Deadpool, one coming out every week for the rest of the month. So 5 weeks in a row, you're going to get 5 issues of this story. No waiting around to see what happens, and thank goodness for that, because I don't know if I could wait 5 months to read this entire thing. I loved it. Now, in the larger picture, this was a great start to the story, though I do have to wonder how having an issue dedicated to each individual character is going to come together into one larger overall plot. And I do have a theory on this, and I really hope it's the way Milligan is going with the story. We saw Deadpool show up in a couple of the scenes here, more as a background character, somebody interacting with Wolverine without really being a focal point of the story. Now, with Deadpool being the focus character of the final of the 5 issues, I would love to see him be the one that ties the plot together, with events playing out around him without him really being the major point of the story like the other 4 characters. Of course, let him have his role, but I definitely see this playing out much like Akira Kurosawa's Hidden Fortress, where the story is really told through the eyes of characters that are minor to the plot. For those unfamiliar with the Hidden Fortress, it's the exact same roles C-3PO and R2-D2 played in Star Wars. But really, go watch the Hidden Fortress. It's a fantastic movie. And I sincerely hope that's the way they're going with this. Even if it's not, I'm still fairly confident there's going to be a good story here. I'm just a little concerned if it's all going to tie together at the end, but that did not diminish my enjoyment of this issue one bit. And that's going to be all. As usual, please check me out at massivenerd.net, and I will see you guys next week.